I also want to spend a few minutes talking about annuities. Okay. Annuities are a topic that generally show up on the exam more heavily than people expect. And therefore, people frequently miss questions on annuities. So we're going to start by talking about the difference between fixed and variable annuities, and then we'll go into some additional details. A fixed annuity is not a security. A fixed annuity is a contract. The outcome is guaranteed. And because of that, because it's not an annuity, it's not SEC registered. Okay, so therefore an individual does not necessarily need to be securities registered, such as a Series 7, in order to sell fixed annuities, because again, fixed annuities are not securities. Variable annuities are securities, so therefore they are SEC registered, and an individual does need to be a FINRA registered rep to sell them. They are maintained by an insurance company in a separate account. What does that mean, a separate account? Separate from what? It means separate from their general account where they run their insurance business. And who has the risk in the separate account? The investors in the plan. The owners of the plan take on the risk of the separate account. Okay, because that separate account that manages the annuities will generally be invested in securities. So therefore that separate account is going to have to assume risk. Because variable annuities are securities, we're going to spend our time in this lecture talking about variable annuities as opposed to fixed annuities. A variable annuity begins with the accumulation period. During the accumulation period, an individual will make contributions to their annuity. As an individual makes contributions, the individual will earn or accrue accumulation units. Accumulation units is a measure of the amount of money in the portfolio. It measures the amount of money in the portfolio. That money is typically invested in securities such as mutual funds. There is a death benefit that is offered during the accumulation period. That means that an individual, if they were to die during the accumulation period, their beneficiary, their named beneficiary, would receive at least all previous contributions. So that's offered during the accumulation period. So if an individual were to die during the accumulation period, not after, but during, then that person's beneficiary would receive at least all previous contributions. Potentially any growth, if there is some, but you're guaranteed to get at least all your money back. At some point, the account will be annuitized. When the account is annuitized, that means that contributions will end and distributions will begin. So rather than continuing to contribute funds, the annuitant will start to take money out. And at that point, the accumulation units are converted to annuity units. This is necessary in order to start withdrawing funds from the plan. And because contributions are no longer being made, the number of annuity units is fixed. Once the account is annuitized, the number of annuity units is fixed. The number of annuity units does not change. What does change is the value per annuity unit. It's valued monthly. And that value per annuity unit ultimately determines the monthly distribution that will be received. So the value of each annuity unit determines the amount of the monthly distribution. And here's how it works. At the time of annuitization, the AIR is established. That's the assumed interest rate. What is the AIR? The AIR is the expected monthly return of the portfolio. It's the expected monthly return of the portfolio. It's not the actual return, it's the expected return. And here's the way it works. Every month, the performance of the portfolio is compared to the AIR, the assumed interest rate. If the portfolio outperforms the AIR, the distribution will increase from the previous month. So if the portfolio outperforms the AIR, the distribution will be greater than the previous month. So you get more money than you did last month. If the portfolio underperforms the AIR, the distribution will be less than the previous month. And finally, if the performance of the portfolio equals the AIR, the distribution will be identical to the previous month. So if it outperforms, the money you receive goes up. If it underperforms, the money you receive goes down. And if it performs equally, the distribution stays the same. So that is ultimately how the monthly distribution will be determined. Also, the monthly cash flow from an annuity will be impacted by the expected length of the annuity. So a straight life annuity will pay monthly distributions over the entire lifetime of an annuitant. Monthly distributions over the entire lifetime of the annuitant. And once the annuitant dies, there will be no more distributions. And of all these choices, it will have the shortest expected life. Of these options, it will have the shortest expected life. And therefore, it will have the highest monthly cash flow. It'll have the shortest expected life, and therefore it will have the highest monthly cash flow. A life annuity with period certain will pay monthly distributions over the lifetime of the annuitant, but with a guaranteed minimum number of years. So usually the period certain is typically 10 years. What that means is that an annuitant is guaranteed to receive money for at least 10 years. So let's say the annuitant dies after 3 years. Well, then their beneficiary will get money for 7 more years. So it's guaranteed. It's a guaranteed minimum. If the annuitant lives for 20 years, they get funds the entire time. So the period certain only applies if the annuitant dies within the first 10 years or within the period certain, in which case the beneficiary would get distributions for the remainder of that period certain. And a joint and last survivor annuity will pay monthly distributions over the lifetime of 2 annuitants. It pays monthly distributions over the lifetime of 2 annuitants. And of these options, it will have the shortest expected life because it's based on the life expectancy of 2 people. It will have the shortest expected life. It'll have the longest expected life. It'll have the longest expected life. And therefore, it will have the lowest monthly cash flow. Just to repeat one more time correctly, it will have the longest expected life because it's based on the life expectancy of 2 annuitants, so it'll have the longest expected life, and therefore it will have the lowest monthly cash flow. That's the opposite of a straight life annuity. Straight life, because it's only based on one person, and there's no minimum guaranteed time. There's no period certain. A straight life, again, will have the shortest expected life, and therefore it will have the highest monthly cash flow. That concludes this installment of Notman Notes. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to contact us. You have my contact information on the second slide. Feel free to repeat and rewind to review concepts. And as always, best of luck on your examination. Thank you.